off. Because I always forget. All right. Is this up, Dan?
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
We are going to begin with a story by Daniel Roche called Destroy the Rich. Daniel Roche recently completed a MA in English poetry and is currently working towards an MFA in playwriting. Was at San Francisco State University. His short story, Anatomy of a Broken CPA, was a finalist for a Platypus Prize in Fiction and will be included in the Anthology of Innovative Writing this spring. His piece, Destroy the Rich, will be read by Anthony Villafuete and Meghan Rutigliano and will be available to read on fiction365.com this coming Monday, April 9th. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anthony Villafuete and Meghan Rutigliano.
Oh! NC. I'd like to thank you to our hosts for inviting both of us back this time. And where's Danny? Danny, thank you for giving us something so much fun to work with. We hope you guys enjoy it. My mother cheated on my father with nasty, resulting in my birth being on an escalator rising up to the depths of Wall Street. I tied my umbilical cord in a Windsor knot and power walked before I crawled. My first word was an instructional presentation dealing with devastation caused by bottle-feeding economies. We will benefit from a survivalist mentality. Groupthink is dead. My education began in a cubicle, and as I matured with promotion after promotion, I discovered my ambition was no more than a brazen pet. It was a beast that learned discipline. I wrapped it in a choke collar, and I jerked and yanked. I will be Mr. Williamson, until my inner MBA growled obediently. I throbbed in meetings and surged, make it happen, during quiet luncheons. My poise advanced with every sunrise. I inhaled, keeping my power with every breath until...
Petunias? Tulips? Roses?
During my teenage years, when forgettable girls matured to be desirable women, my mother lunged at...
Love and marriage are not the same.
She claimed statistics united couples and flowcharts determined fertility. Dating started with resumes, interviews, IQ tests, and a complete history of empirical flaws. My minimum qualifications were bobbed hair, a contralto voice, and a doctoral thesis identifying the sterility of Thomas Paine as applied to profit maximizing. There were few first dates that triumphantly made it to a second. However, it became clear that my zeal meant...
Ambitious, but you're a complete ass.
After 5 decades of...
I'm sure we'll do this again.
I accepted my loneliness and intended to my work as I would a religion. In the name of earnings, acquisition, and holdings, never amend. You see, I wanted unconditional love, but under my conditions. And I had never found a partner who could honestly claim...
You're no longer Mr. Williamson. You're Charles. Only Charles.
I've overheard I'm not a particularly good man. I've overheard I've destroyed entire lives from behind my desk, and all for the sake of a 0.2% increase this June. Listed below is a brief summary of my love life. At the age of 6, I gave Natalie a Valentine's Day card. You can have my cupcake at lunch. But my mother found out, and so...
Charles, this is what a prenuptial agreement looks like.
If you're not doing anything, we can play Monopoly. But, unfortunately, Candace attended the wrong school, and so...
Charles, St. Joseph's Preparatory is practically public.
At the university, I became too busy for women, and business school was an endless defense of, oh, I'm not interested. Certainly there were moments when, ooh, now, she is beautiful. But then, oh then, I would catch her gaze as she searched for private jets and saunas, and I could never placate the affection of
A Rolls Royce? My name is Bethany. It's a pleasure.
driving home. I would find myself lost at the store, starting past, and my attitude would be towards love, becoming more calloused by it.
James, I don't believe in soulmates. Let's swing by the office.
In spite of, sir, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I said it long ago with,
Charles, the woman of your dreams is efficient and silent.
and
Mr. Williamson, Congressman Payne is here to see you.
of course there were whispers of a scandalous public life. But, in actuality, my weekends were a nuance of chamomile tea and Chopin as I itched for the markets to reopen. You see, I toiled for a prosperous life, velvet curtains and leather-bound repute, and yet my dinners were spent with only candles for company. On occasion, a colleague would say,
Please, spend Christmas with me and my family.
but I always had negotiations in the morning, or a conference in Seoul, or my mother is terribly sick, or regardless, I invariably dove behind the barriers of love. Love has no place in business. Within a shift, months ago, on the Ides of March, I encountered a snippet of a jewel, a song between traffic jams and
Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba.
Mr. Williamson, what are your thoughts on the SEC investigation? The chorus trickled in and out of earshot until finally, do you hear that? That humming. It's gorgeous. Which of course segued into, is CEO Charles Williamson losing his mind amidst the accusations of fraud? I thought my way through the flashes and questions, but the voice became a melodic mirage. I thought the tune had been forgotten until I was caught humming days later in the elevator. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. Is that Ella Fitzgerald? After incessantly falling asleep to moving shadow. Pardon me, let me do that over. Moving shadows right there. And walking to, oh, this magic word. I knew I had to find the source of this song. I waited every morning in front of my building, in disguise, for a repeat performance. But weeks went by, and not a trickle of...
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
Surprisingly, I wasn't discouraged. In fact, I became more attracted to the chase. I was excited at the incapability of authority. I had never possessed such a bounce in my step as I preferred to march with tenacity, and yet I found myself unwittingly hopping up the streets. Yes, my Ponzi scheme screamed of prison. But at the end of the day, I couldn't help but sway and sing, oh, isn't it romantic? I'd just about given up on my infatuation when
A dream that can be heard.
echoed off the sides of New York.
Say nighty night and kiss me. Just hold me close and tell me you miss me.
It was daybreak when the pigeons yawned their coos, and upon I hear the breezes, the feathers smacked awake in unison. They flew up in a spiral, searching for a source, but soon settled on being happily adrift. The flaps occasionally spread wide and paused in hopes of staying afloat on Ella's words alone.
While I'm alone as blue as can be, dream a little dream of me.
On Man for Love, I choose to run in a direction picked by gut instinct. Whim was my map, and passion my pace. With each step I took, I broke apart the morning rush hour. Cars attempted to pour across the intersection. But I removed my disguise and became the suit and tie of a CEO exploding. snuffed out the honks and yells of the 99% by showering them with pockets. Hundreds of $100 bills swayed to the rhythm of desire until I snapped away in midair by fervent hunger. I learned long ago the masses ignore my transgressions so long as I provide a tiny moment of bliss. And so the people pecked in my wake as I spiraled past, well, isn't this romantic? Inched closer. When I turned the corner, I found my origin. It was her.
Petunias, tulips, roses.
She was irresistible. Force of immeasurable beauty, rumbling on tiptoes. Her bobbed hair blossomed defiantly. Her laugh pulled the titan, and her sighs were exfoliating lullabies. When she said,
Good morning. My name is Eliza.
I diminished from a grown man to a timid child. No! A conqueror of companies to a diluted poet. No! From a curious god of commerce to... Hi, single rose, please. After that, Eliza percolated into my life from the most mundane, this cappuccino is stunning, to $1 billion, oh, Sarah, you drew a heart next to your signature. I cast for air when my mind wandered to her flower stand. Every time I blinked, I was met with her silhouette transfixed and hovering in front of an orb of radiance. My existence shrieked in terror when I smiled for the first time in decades. Eliza. Eliza! I was smitten. Unfortunately, this was also a time when the economy popped and I happened to be the tip of the needle. My face was crestfallen on every newsstand, and destroy the rich was a daily part of it. They fell, and we picked them up. I was demonized, and no amount of sorrow or regret could pay down my ethos. As this generation's permanent bane, I was the evening's entertainment. I was tragically cheered on. Under any other circumstance, I would grit my teeth and snap my fingers to release a barrage of rabid lawyers and lobbyists. I would make the SEC a chew toy for decades until all was forgiven, all forgotten, and Mr. Williamson, on behalf of the United States government, we sincerely apologize for any inconvenience caused. However, upon hearing, it's terminal. I knew my end was near. In which case, members of the committee, I built an empire that was desolate from the beginning. I worked alone always. Do as you will. In spite of making the American dream lucid, I was at a point in my life when a table for one was met with pity, and not whispers of the most powerful man in Forbes magazine. As I stood on my front lawn and faced my mansion covered in darkness, I realized no one would bat an eye. Not a single light was turned on for me. I had never heard,
Welcome home, Charles.
it was only Mother.
Good, you're here. I fired the gardener.
After the SEC swept me away, I stood atop my rooms and accepted myself as no more than a blip in the history of business. My entire life's work was to become a footnote in how the world runs. I had lost everything save the suit on my back and an intense connection to a woman who had never spoken to me beyond.
Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.
It was at this low point that I made a decision. I was no longer to be Mr. Williamson. For the first time in my life, I was to be Charles. Only Charles. I approached Eliza's flower stand, and as I recall...
Good evening, Mr. Williamson. I'm afraid I'm all out of roses.
Due to my nervousness, I'm afraid I blacked out for a moment. Until
Mr. Williamson, are you okay?
I cleared my throat. Yes, I have something for you. On the cusp of being broken, my entire body whimpered and quivered, turned and ran. But then it came out at last, or slumped forward more or less. Stars shining bright above you. She stepped back on night breezes seemed to whisper. Passersby began to stop when birds singing on the sycamore trees. Eliza stood aghast and petrified. When I finished with, dream a little dream of me. My words were chirped, fractured, and eventually shattered over her petunias, tulips, and roses. Say nighty-night and kiss me. Had fallen flat. No, never again, no more. I was Mr. Williamson. Always and only. I watched myself, watched the crowd watch me horrified. I was their monster. I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Eliza. I adjusted my tie, turned away, but then froze.
Just hold me tight and tell me you'll miss me.
We seized the duet as follows.
Sweet dreams till night beams find you. Sweet dreams that leave all worries behind you.
We hovered over the onlookers, gripping their fingertips, wrapped between fingertips, hands pressed lightly. Our voices wrote a history we had never had. We were no longer simply an exchange of goods and services. We were
sweet dreams till sunbeams find you.
And time gave priceless gift to a man who'd earned his wealth off the sweat and backs of Wall Street, which is precisely why
sweet dreams that leave all worries behind you.
it was during our song that a new lifetime came to be. Eliza and I met while attending the university. She was surging between classes, botany and agriculture, while I blew from economics to ethics. We clashed. Oh! I apologize. I didn't see you. It was this jolt of eye contact when I turned into I. She picked up her books as I swiftly stumbled. I believe we're in the same class. I, of course, eventually failed ethics and spent the remainder of my semester attending soil moisture and trace elements of copper, burn, and iron. On our 50th wedding anniversary, our great-grandchildren sat in the front stage of our backyard. The mansion was aglow, twinkling.
The Williamsons.
Swans and peacocks meandered through our private lake. And then there was applause as my son. Yes, they created an empire. But this family is their legacy. The microphone was handed to me and I paused. I gazed into my family's eyes and I realized they were part of my eyes, part of Eliza's eyes. And they were their own, beaming. My only words to them were, now this is wealth. As the trumpet began to play, my wife and I once again swayed to,
Yes, dream a little dream of me.